Okay. Ooh, yeah, it's on. Welcome, everyone. Save it for the chat, Hattie. Welcome, everyone. We are talking about celebrating women in the industry, and I'm joined by four brilliant women here, Emma, Hattie, Lisa Jane, and Jess. If you can all start by just introducing yourself and what your role is, that would be great, and then we'll get started with the question. So, Emma, if you want to kick off.
Yeah, so my name's Emma Bohan, and I'm the Managing Director of IMS Heat Pumps. We install heat pumps.
My name is Hattie, Hasan. I am an MBE. I don't always show that off, but that I help women to become self-employed plumbers, and I advocate for tradeswomen.
So I'm Lisa Jayne-Cook. I work for Hire, HVAC, and I'm also the IOR president.
I'm Jess Eddowes, work for Triton Showers, and I've recently been promoted to Head of Product Management.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So we'll start off by just talking about something really positive and maybe some success stories that you've seen in the last year, few years for women in the industry. So either projects that you've been involved with or just things that you've seen and been inspired by. So Emma, do you want to kick off and then we'll just have a nice little chit chat about it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when I first got into this industry, it is awash with men, obviously. What inspires me every day is the amount of amazing women that are in the industry, whether they are at policy level, government level, installers, plumbers. It never ceases to amaze me where we pop up. But actually, my most inspiring story of recent months is we have a pretty decent social media, I think. You know, my marketing manager, my sister, another woman, go, does a pretty good job. But, you know, heat pumps are only so attractive on social media unless you post a picture of your female apprentice with her first plant room install and then see how that goes viral. It was insane. And so, yeah, I have to say that Emily is fantastic and deserved to go viral, but equally, it's always the comments. Ooh, have you seen that part where, has it got a tundish? Is anybody insulating it? I'm not quite sure we get the same when we put our male apprentices on there.
Yeah, I think you have to be ready to kick back sometimes, don't you, at the comments that come in, or have very thick skin, either or.
I just don't think that, well, I know we don't. You know, we post photos of our guys doing these installs day in, day out. As I say, it's a dry subject for social media. But, you know, the volume of comments where you say, oh, look at my apprentice, he's installed his first cylinder. The first comment is not, oh, is that D2 correct? I'm sure there's the 28 to 22 drop-off there. Can somebody just check the back of that? You know, has she signed the cylinder? Interesting that we just don't get that volume of comments when we do the same with our lads.
Going to you, Jess, next, if that's all right. What have you been involved with, or what projects have you seen in the last year that would count as a success story to celebrate women in the industry?
I think for me, the CIC Elevate working group was fantastic. So we had a career advancement strategies session a few weeks ago. There was over 100 women in the industry in one room talking about where they want their career to go and how they're going to get there. And that was really inspiring, and seeing people talk and communicate and, yeah, there was a buzz in the room, which is just fantastic, seeing that amount of people talking about their career in that industry. So that was a massive highlight for me.
And from what I understand, there's real sort of action points that come out of those meetings, isn't there?
Yeah, people take away what they're going to do for their career. It's very personal to them, who their, you know, sponsors are, influencers, what they want to do as they move forward. And yeah, it's really great to see people talking and networking and, oh, that I didn't know that, and I could do that. And yeah, just getting a feel, and women all together is, yeah, amazing.
And moving on to you, both for your presidency, but also in your sort of day job, are there sort of initiatives that you've been involved with this year that you want to give a shout out to?
Maybe not so much this year, but actually this week, the Women in Refrigeration, Air Conditioning and Heat Pumps is actually celebrating a 10-year anniversary. So when we started that network, it was so challenging to find women to actually represent women in the industry. And we do welcome men because we want to know what you're experiencing on your side of industry. But actually for us to say that our network has been 10 years in the making and that we have such a strong working committee, that's something that I'm really proud of this year.
Brilliant. And Hattie, obviously you had your conference last year and you've got another one coming up soon.
Yeah, our conference, Women Installers Together, started as an idea, floated to a few companies and has grown. Next year is our 10th anniversary. So we're very proud of that. And just slightly outside of the industry, I do DIY courses for women survivors of abuse. And the engagement, the thing that really inspires me is that women in those situations feel like they can do nothing, they are worth nothing, and yet they come along to those courses and they put their hands on tools and they absolutely glow. And we've even, there's a possibility that from the course I've just finished delivering, we might even be able to get 3 plumbers out of it. So that's the kind of way that I want to use whatever I can do.
That's amazing. Is that local to where you're based that you're doing that?
No, that is in London.
That's in London. Okay, brilliant. I guess, Emma, from your first comment, I sort of know the answers to this, but why do we still need to have these conversations in 2026? Why, will there come a time where we don't have to celebrate women in the industry because we'll have fixed it?
Yeah, but given half a chance, the women will fix it. The issue is that we need to be given half the chance. I think, it's the same question that a lot of diverse groups can ask, why do we need Black Lives Matter and why do we need Pride Week? Well, because they are the underrepresented people in various, demographics. And it's the same with women, the statistic is still very poor for women in trades of all descriptions, not just heating and plumbing. And yet we are super capable. I mean, as Hattie's just described, I grew up with a lady who had the Reader's Digest book of how to do anything. And so, I certainly learned a few things from my mum, and there's nothing I wouldn't give a good go at. But we need the opportunities, and that means that we do need, I hate all of this, but we do need safe spaces. Building sites are not safe spaces. I'm sorry, there's a great installer, Patrick, who I was speaking to last year, with his female apprentice on construction sites, women aren't safe to be here. Really? Are we still peddling out this same old, diatribes? At which point, it is an education piece from companies who've got men on sites that this is just not acceptable. You wouldn't say derogatory things about your own child, and this is somebody else's child, and they're giving it a go. And actually, women have proven to be pretty good at most things that they give it a go. We just, need to be given the opportunity and the space to do that without feeling that we're looked down upon, or that we need to watch our back, or that we're not equal to everybody else that's there.
Is that everyone else's experience as well? Do you still think that we still need these obviously you do, but why do we still need these conversations in 2026? What is your experience when you're out on jobs or you're, at work? What are you sort of mirroring what Emma's saying?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So yeah, definitely for me, so I've only just transitioned recently from an industrial role into like domestic and light commercial. And definitely on that industrial side, there was even fewer women. And you do have those kind of attitudes. You're on site, so you're in your full PPE, looking at a piece of equipment, working on a piece of equipment, yet you're still asked if you know what you're doing, or are you lost? Are you lost? Can I help you? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous in this day and age. And as you said, Emma, women, if you give us a chance, we can do so much more. We really can.
Yeah, Hattie, would you want to add to that?
I have this conversation on a regular basis, and it is companies contacting us to say, how do we get more women into the industry? And I am frankly sick of saying the same old, same old, same old. You need to make your company attractive to women, not just employ women. So they need a place where, yes, they feel safe, they feel supported, they feel like they have the equal opportunity to go as far up in that company as they can. They need, if they're coming on as an apprentice, they need to be trained as well as any other apprentice would be. And we need to get, the demographic of women in the industry still is between the ages of 25 and 45. So in order for us to try and get younger women in, it's not a case of going to school and talking to girls and getting them excited about pipes. It's actually about talking to the infrastructure around those girls, the school, the careers, the job experiences, the companies. It's a holistic and, dare I say, feminist approach that is required in order for us to kind of calm down on these conversations. But until that happens, we're going to have to just keep having them. Because I've been in the industry 36 years, and the percentage has gone from 1 to bloody 1.9 or something. You know, we need to do more.
Yeah, it's not much growth, really, is it?
Really.
Jess, Hattie raised a point there about what companies can do to genuinely be attractive to women, and it's not just about employing women, it goes further than that. So what, you know, from your perspective, is the difference between something that's inclusive on paper but or is actually really inclusive or really women-friendly, or however you want to describe it?
I think for me, it's what actually happens behind closed doors rather than what's written on a piece of paper somewhere and stuck on a wall. It's whether people get the opportunities, the conversations are happening, using data to drive decisions and inclusivity rather than just on a whim saying we're doing something and we're not. It's actually drive, action, and people being involved from data for me. That's what makes it actually inclusive rather than just, saying we're inclusive on a piece of paper somewhere.
Yeah, you're nodding. Anything to add to that about what companies can do to actually move the conversation, move the dial?
I actually think there needs to be a really big attitude shift as well, because quite often I hear women are just not interested. Like, women don't want to work in jobs that are dirty. They're not interested in technology. And I actually had a previous CEO say, "Wouldn't you rather work in fashion?" Which is insane, but these attitudes still exist. So there is an element of perhaps the company isn't set up. So Hattie and I were talking about when I was breastfeeding my son and there was no facility. And this was 20 years ago, but I had nowhere to take him. And I was told that there were no part-time engineering roles. So I had to come back full-time, yet I couldn't nurse my child. So it's about considering everything that we need. And that isn't just for women. That's for everybody. So all workplaces need to rethink what they offer in terms of welfare. You know, has everybody actually got all of their needs? And like we mentioned, PPE, ill-fitting, that isn't just specific to women. It isn't. Yeah. We're all different shapes. We need so much more in terms of options.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of questions that you've raised there. You talked about when you had a small child, so that was obviously a massive sort of challenge for you with your career. So what would you say that was the biggest barrier as a woman in the industry, and how did you get over that? If you had, did you have to go back full time? Was that your only option?
I went back. My son was 6 weeks old when I went back full time. When I had my second child, she was 16 weeks old, so I'd saved a little bit more to stay off. But I was essentially told if I wanted to stay in engineering, you can't do part-time work. I would say that was a barrier, but I still feel like the attitudes probably are the biggest barrier, and it's the day-to-day, the small, they're like little paper cuts that you get from people, and it just builds and builds, and there always comes a point where you just say, I've had enough. And as Hattie said, female engineers in our industry topping out at 40, why is that?
So how... Small question. How do we change those attitudes then? How do we stop the death by 1,000 paper cuts?
I would have liked to have seen more men in this audience, because
There's
when
a
you're
few.
just
All the men wave. There you go. Look, there's a few.
Welcome. You know, I would have liked to have seen more men in the audience because we're talking to women, people who are already experiencing the same things that we're talking about, and we need to be talking to, and they need to be listening and going back to their companies and making those changes. So that's one way.
I mean, it goes back to what you were saying about how this is good for everybody, not just women. So, you know, that if there was more men in the audience, maybe we could get that out a bit more.
Well, this is the thing. It's not just about how do we adapt for women. But, you know, I just sat there thinking, you know, you small installer business, thinking about hiring somebody. You might have the most capable wife in the world who, you know, she's everything in the house. But, you know, you're going to hire the bloke because he's probably a bit stronger in terms of lifting that cylinder or moving that heat pump. And yet, you know, your wife has probably moved everything out of the house and put it back in 3 times while you've not been looking. But it's those attitudes that persist. And actually, we should be asking the question, why are we making men lift these heavy things at the same time? And why are we expecting them, you know, a 2-man lift on a 550-kilo heat pump? The HSE says it's 3 or 4. But, you know, we're going to hire Bob, because Bob looks like he's quite hefty, you know. He can help me on that. Whereas, you know, Sheila, who's equally qualified, looks like she might struggle and put her back out. Nobody should be doing that. And if we all looked at those kind of things in terms of everybody benefits, then I think that would just help everybody, but it would certainly help women not be overlooked for jobs that they're clearly able to do.
Yeah, because that brings into it the health and safety. I was on a project a few years ago, and we had to build towers, and the minimum distance between each rung was 2 meters. So, as women, we needed a ladder to get between the 2 rungs to put the next rung up, and it was just we're putting ourselves in danger, and the health and safety rules are made for the majority of people, which are men. But if we want to get more women in, we do have to consider changing even that side of things.
Staying with you, Hattie, on my notes here it says this is about complaints that your delegates have made at your conference. And the 2 biggest things that women complain about are workwear that doesn't fit and a lack of basic facilities on site. I mean, they seem like really easy things to fix.
They are really easy things to fix.
So why aren't they being fixed?
I knew a gas engineer, and she used to have to buy her own clothes because the company didn't buy clothes for the women because they bought the clothes for the men. And so first they subsidised her a little bit of money to top up because her clothes cost more because they don't make as many. So, you know, go figure. That's why women will just buy clothes. Why should they have to spend, you know, 150 quid on a pair of trousers?
And on a basics, I'm sorry, you know, there are people of all persuasions who are guilty of keeping a dirty toilet, but the majority are men, and we don't want to go to that blue portaloo at a festival. We don't want to go to that blue portaloo at the construction site unless somebody's put some nice soap on it and a towel. You know, I'm sorry, but, you know, my experience, our female toilets are just a lot less of a health hazard, and we'd like that to continue to be so.
They're not like that at home.
No.
So why do they need to be like that in the builder's merchant or on a site?
I know some of my family are like that at home, that's all I'm saying. I mean, where do you get decent workwear from? Surely there must be some companies out there now doing good workwear. I mean, give them a shout out. Where can you get good stuff from?
You put me on the spot, Lucy.
Sorry.
Because I can't think of a company. But if you go to any workwear company, they say, we make a women's range. Now, it used to just be that they were elasticated, and they thought that was all they needed to do. But now I think there's been new legislation, really quite recent, that has got to do with fitting. So it's not just women, but it does affect women more than men. And it's to do with correct fitting, to do with body type. So most PPE and workwear companies should have a department where, or they have a sizing guide or something that, we're all different shapes and sizes. I've found sizing guides to be rubbish, personally. But, you can't, I spoke to a manufacturer and they used the words, you can't please all of the people all of the time, which I understand in business, you can't, but we need to, there are more efforts being made than have been. So on that front, the new legislation is to do with body fit rather than man size L, woman size M, or whatever.
Obviously, we don't want to put people off joining the industry, but it isn't all negative. Like you said, there have been some big improvements, and it is a great career. There's great opportunities. But what more do you think needs to be done to attract those younger women or those career changers to convince them that this is an industry worth joining? What can we as a collective do? What can manufacturers do? What can trade bodies do? Who wants to go first? There's a lot of sighing next to me. Start with Jess.
I think I think when you look at the stats, it's not actually attracting them, it's keeping hold of them. There's no point pouring into a leaky bucket that we've got at the moment. So it's, having the conversations, why are people leaving, especially under the age of 40, even 34, I think it really starts to taper off. So it's not attracting them in the first place, it's keeping hold of them. And actually the recognition of that and why that is, and having those deep conversations to understand what we're losing them in the first place, rather than attracting more and then losing them as well.
And do you have any ideas why that's happening? Is it just fatigue?
I think there's personal, organisational, societal norms. I think there's various elements to it. For me, one of my biggest barriers is myself a lot of the time, and the confidence. So, I think, various different things.
Yeah, Lisa, do you want to
So
add
I
to
was
that?
just going to say there are a lot of networks already available.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is probably asking employers to support women actually attending those events as well, because when we connect, we feel less isolated. So the wonderful thing about this panel is, we all know each other, we will sort of talk to each other and we share experiences and knowledge, and having that support network, just someone that you can turn to and go, this happened today, could you believe it?
Absolutely, and I highly recommend anybody who's getting into the industry to find your peoples. I mean, I'm going to say 1990, when was it? 2006, 2007. I was really struggling. It took me a while, but it was like 2019 when I came across Regen, and there was this most aspiring lady called Rachel, and she was doing so much for women in that industry, and it's through that network that I have met other people who today, Rhiannon, Chin Chin, Lucy, if you're out there, we're still connected today. And so when you get those networks and you find that support group, keep them, because we are all here to back each other up. And when times are a struggle and you just want to shout into a void, don't do that. Shout at a load of other women and they'll all come round you and go, come on, love, we can sort this. So find your networks. We are here to support you. You'll find it is a really supportive. Interestingly, on my own journey, some of the most supportive people have been men too. So it's like any industry, it's like any area. It's not all men, it's just some men.
Yeah. And obviously the Women Installers Together conference, which happens in the first week of July every year. And the reason why I set that up is to end the isolation that women were feeling. A lot of women, they talk about their experiences. It's not a moan fest, it's an absolute fun-filled day. And some women, one of the things they say is, I thought it was only me. And that's because they're isolated and they can't talk about their experiences. So as soon as they start talking about their experiences, you look around the room and a lot of women are going, yep. And that's how you gain strength from each other, because they might have come up with something that's helped them that they can then pass on to another woman in the room.
And women advocate for women. You know, in this industry, it is quite small still. We're not as big as I think any one of us would want to be. Maybe the shower industry is much bigger, but you know, in this particular industry, it is very small. And being able to say, you know, oh, that's a great role, or I'm thinking about this, or have you seen that? And, you know, advocating for somebody to go and do better, do bigger, move, you know, whatever it is that they're doing. You know, women are really good advocates for other women, I find.
So I'll just ask you one more question, and then we've probably got a couple of minutes to get questions from the audience if anyone's got one. So my final question for all of you is, when we inevitably are still having this conversation at InstallerSHOW 2027, what do you want to have happened in the year to come? What do you want to either have achieved yourself or for the industry to be doing? Where would you like to see some progress on the double?
I think for me, just the recognition. When women thrive, team thrive. So, yeah, I think that more recognition, more conversation, building that visible momentum. The more conversations we have, the more momentum builds. And, yeah, I think for me, it's just that recognition piece that everyone thrives when a woman thrives. So.
Yeah, it's true. We're good at lifting each other up, and that needs to continue to happen. I think, you know, for me, in my business, I've got my lovely Emily. She's an apprentice. But in the X years, I've had 5 CVs from women. And, you know, so Leah here, she's like my bloody hero, having, you know, sorted out, bringing in 5, 6 females just to go through that together. And I just think, you know, the warm home plans in this particular industry, you know, there's a great list of lovely things, but I think within some of that 15 billion spend, they really need to start supporting women in this industry, because we are amazing, we do amazing things, and like Jess has just said, you know, we all thrive when women thrive.
Anything from Hattie or Lisa Jane on what you want to have seen happen in the next 12 months?
I'd really like to see you having a young female apprentice on this panel.
Okay, yeah, well,
That's a
I mean,
challenge. That's a challenge to install a show.
Well, we do work with a few. There's an electrical apprentice that does some stuff for us. So
Who was the apprentice of the year last year was a woman in the InstallerSHOW.
yeah, so yeah, we could definitely do that. I could consider it done. That's an easy one. Have you got anything else?
I think we just got to keep going. You know, over the years, I've been in industry 26 years, and things have changed a lot, and there are a lot more female leaders, but it's just, we have to keep pushing that. And when I say we, that is everybody, men, women, supporting each other.
Yeah, I think I'd obviously like to see more women in the industry. That percentage, if it can just pop over 2, that would be great. But I won't settle for that. But it will be good for a start. But I think regarding the question of why is it like a circle of we had some women and now we haven't. We had some women, now we haven't. A campaign is always a great thing, because you inspire people and you get them to come, get them excited, and they come and they say, yeah, I'm going to do this. But then inspiration is not enough. You need infrastructure to follow inspiration. You need backing. And so I would like somehow to be in touch with companies that want to do that, because I can help them.
Okay, is there any questions from the audience for the panel? Okay. I'm the slowest walker ever, but I will make my way over there. Just get the person that can't walk properly to be the roving mic. That's a good idea, isn't it? So I feel like I should tell a joke on my way over.
It's not a question as such, it's more just the fact that I have twin daughters who are 11, and so they're starting their journey. They're starting their journey into comprehensive, and I want to give them the opportunity that there's another direction other than university. And because of being in the industry myself, I really feel that's a good stepping stone. And I just want to thank you lot for being there and being an advocate for it and just showing, yes, they can do this. There's no reason why they shouldn't be shied away from it. Oh, wow, you can't lift a radiator. Great, we'll speak to 50 guys who have lifted a radiator. By the time they're 50, they've got a bad back. You are smarter than us. You'll go, 2 of us can do that, and we'll live until we're 100. We need to have more of that, and need to have more recognition about our differences, but how our differences make us better, and how we can all work together. And I think that's probably where we need to be. So thank you.